Are you paying too much in taxes? Elevated Tax and Accounting is a firm that specializes in tax planning and strategy to minimize your tax bill. Elevated Tax consult with you on tax strategy throughout the year, so no more waiting until the end of the year and hoping for the best. As a business owner, you know your sole focus should be spent working on your business, not in it. Outsourcing gives you the time to concentrate on the core reasons you started your company, to create and innovate a top-tier product and generate profits. Elevated Tax and Accounting, elevating you and your business with a modern professional touch.
Driving along on the highway and you've been hit by a semi-truck. Now what do? You call your Montana attorneys, Ryan and Miller. We have the expertise to help guide you along in these specific types of accidents. So these are the 3 steps that you need to follow. Number 1, make sure that the police are called and that there is a report of the accident. Second, make sure that you're getting the medical attention that you need and following up with your doctor. Third, do not talk to an insurance company until you've talked to an attorney. They are not going to help you protect your rights, and you want to make sure that you know all that you're entitled to. Contact an attorney today by clicking the link below.
Time for our ESPN Roundtable, our long-form interview of the week, and we're joined by Montana State head women's basketball coach Tricia Binford. Bobcats back from the NCAA Tournament. It's been just over a week, but it's been like a whirlwind for Montana State since then. We'll get into all that, but first, Coach, in the here and now, first of all, congratulations on an awesome season. Just take us through just the whole experience. We'll get into the details of the game against Ohio State, but to me, one of the most fun parts about covering the Big Sky is watching the champions have this week where they get to experience all these things, where you get to be on the selection show and you get all this attention on the national level, and you get to sort of tell your story outside of the Big Sky Conference ranks. So just take us through, what was the experience like for your team just being back in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, it's hard to put it in one word. I'm like, incredible would be just the first thing that pops in the head. But, when you kind of start off of a season of, what you're looking forward to bring in to what you have returning, and then you get that coming through as far as beyond the vision you had hoped. That part's just, it's so exciting and gratifying for a team that was so selfless from day one. And the other component of that was, you look at the work that was put in off the court to become that team, to kind of grow and evolve on the defensive identity side, as well as the scoring punch on the offensive side, but then to have your community supporting it all. That was the other piece was, we always have boosters and fans, and so much of our community travel to Boise to start. I feel like Bozeman becomes Boise, and that to me is one of the very reasons why we've loved continuing to see what Montana State can do next. But then to see our little sliver, even at the selection show, everybody was talking how we had the biggest crowd for selection show turning out for that event, and then travel to Columbus. I'm like, at spring break, there's a lot of other places people could go. My daughter was hoping for UV of 10, and she got Columbus. So we were just grateful that we had so many people go out and support these kids, because it was just such a fun ride.
You could tell, too, that your players really enjoyed the whole experience. And then I thought that a picture tells 1,000 words, right? I thought the photo of your team walking off the court, and certainly there's a couple that looked disappointed, but mostly it was smiles, and they were waving at the crowd, and you could tell, like, hey, it's a bummer that we just lost, but we just performed our best, and this season was great. And that was reflected in the postgame press conference with Esmeralda Morales and what she had to say about all of it too. So it seemed like your ladies had good perspective on the season as a whole, even despite the disappointing ending to it.
Yeah, I'm like, innings could be felt so many different ways. And, the component of the first half, even starting there, I'm like, the leading up, you don't want them to miss the journey of the week, right? Because, like, you're on somebody's home floor. It's going to be a really tough stage, tough opponent. That's kind of, where our program is still at. We're ready to win in that first round. I'm like, that's the goal of this program. And, we really felt like we had a great opportunity to maybe not be on somebody's home floor, but that's what we got. And that whole week, is, there's so many pieces of it. You get your Under Armour gear, you get all those special things. You have the media just throughout the week. You have the charter. The kids soaked everything in, but they also were locked in. And I felt like that was the step that our kids did take well, that they were ready to go and felt like they belong there on that stage. And when we got the crowd super, I'm like, and I told him in the huddle, you did that. The crowd was booing. The coach got a technical. I'm like, I'm not saying that we got the technical or anything. I'm just saying like we were in the game in that moment and we were doing Bobcat things. Like we were, you're thinking turnovers, you're thinking of countering. We had a little bit of foul trouble. They jumped on us really quick in the third. And that second half is where, we didn't feel great about the second half, but I was just so proud of the kids that that second half didn't become what we focused on for the accomplishment of the season. So just fun to hear them with the reporters on that stage, being able to reflect on just a special ride, and it took everybody.
Big Sky Breakdown, proudly presented by the Bobcat Collective at Montana State. The Bobcat Collective is the NIL collective that serves Montana State University student athletes. The collective has partnered with Montana State to connect fans, alumni, businesses, and local nonprofits with Montana State student athletes. Opportunities through the collective allow student athletes to earn compensation while serving the greater Montana State University community. Sign up now for memberships and enjoy automatic entry into raffles for free tickets while supporting the bright minds at Montana State. They have multiple different membership tiers, and you can also be a one-time supporter, and you can also business partner or corporate supporter. Visit bobcatcollective.com for more.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Town Pump. Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
Tricia Binford here on Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio, also the Big Sky Breakdown podcast series. So when you first learned the draw and you started watching Ohio State, what did you think? Because just knowing a little bit about them coming into this draw, I thought, wow, that's actually similar team to Montana State in terms of style. They just happen to be in the Big Ten with a bunch of Big Ten athletes. But, two of the best defensive, high-pressure teams in the country. So what did you think when you turned on the film, and then how'd you go about preparing for a team that does play at least a little bit similar to your team?
Yeah, I'm like, your first thought is, obviously you would hope for like a different style, maybe,
No doubt.
possibly, right? Because you turn teams over and that's what you do. And so you're watching another team that's going to be pressing the entire time, and they're doing this in their conference. And I'm like, well, this is going to be a challenge of how are we going to take care of the ball? Because it was for us, like throughout the year, it was always focused on taking care of the ball, turning teams over, get that margin in our favor. And they had done it so well and with such great athletes that we spent a ton of focus that week on our press breaker of any tweaks we needed to make, because we didn't feel like we took great care of the ball in Boise. Even particularly with the UNC first game, I'm like, we could have done better, and we knew we were going to have to be better to give ourselves a great chance of who's going to separate themselves in that category. And obviously that's where Ohio State won. We didn't turn them over enough, and we did struggle with their pressure. There were at times where I felt like we did a great job with it. And then obviously both teams are talking about, once you break it, how do you find your great shot? And we both had a little bit of foul trouble, so that piece was back and forth. But there were the pieces of the preparation served us well. They handled the ball screen very well. I felt like we forced them to change defensively how they were guarding the ball screen, because we thought they would hedge. We thought they might trap Esme, so we needed to have some ways of attacking that, and our kids executed that. So there's a lot of great takeaways, but I think the big picture was the press breaker.
certainly one thing I always watch in these NCAA tournament games for both men and women is, can the Big Sky team just hang athletically on the court, or are they going to get totally overwhelmed? Like you saw that with the Bobcat men 2 years in a row. They play Texas Tech. That was the most athletic team in the country, and you're like, well, that's kind of a bad draw, you know. I mean, their shooting guard is as big as Jabril Bello, who's the biggest guy in the Big Sky. So this is probably not that good of a draw. But then the next year, Montana State was absolutely on par with Kansas State. Same thing with your team, though. I thought you guys could definitely hang on the court. So is that a piece of optimism for you moving forward? It seems like athletically and as frame wise, you guys are right there with a Power Five team.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a focus of, where our program is heading. You're not gonna, if you're gonna win in that first round, you're probably not doing it with the same kind of center, right? As far as some of those power fours are. So for us, lengthwise, we are getting longer to match those things, and it does play to our style where we switch nearly everything. And speed wise, we have been getting faster to match those components. We do know that from a physicality standpoint, we might not match all that. We might not match some of the size. That was something that we did notice in the matchup is we break it size wise. We weren't much different because we are long with that matchup, and their starting center was not available for that game. And, so across the board, we were both kind of playing undersized. When you look at that game and who they put even on Esme, they were putting on, Terry, or how you pronounce her name. I'm like, they were putting their post and length and size on her. So, those are things moving forward of who are you going to be? You're not going to be like everybody, but for us, that would be the way to advance. And we definitely don't want to take a step back on that. We like the fact that we play fast, we are aggressive defensively, and it's a really, really fun style for our kids to play.
I did a deep dive into the success of low seeds in the women's tournament. A 14 seed, 15 seed have never won in the first round ever. 13 seeds have won 7 times, but that's in, you know, 500 matchups basically. But then the 12 seeds have won, I think, 47 times. So it's a significantly better thing. And you talked about this in your post-game press conference, just the difference between getting a 12 and a 13, because you're not going to have to play on somebody's home court. You can actually play on a neutral site. You're going to get probably a more favorable matchup. You might be able to draw, a non-power four type of team. So moving forward, what do you think are the ingredients you'd like to add to try to get maybe that more advantageous seed for your team?
Well, I think we need to do a better job of continuing to splash our resume, our, what you have done over the entire season. We need to get that in front of the NCAA more often. I think there's the time zones of the West Coast, and we need to be intentional of what that looks like moving forward. And, we were trying to send out information of where we were in the national rankings with our steals per game or turnover margin, all of those kind of things on the defensive end. Those need to be more present for them to take a closer look and a deep dive at some of these lower seeds. I'm like, they spend a lot of time looking at these high seeds, of course, for very important reasons. But as a conference, our Big Sky conference, we are a very, very competitive conference when you're comparing us to, the Big West, the WAC, West Coast, Mountain West. Like our conference, where we're at, I just think we need to be intentional of that to start. Number two, we know that Ryan does our scheduling for us. He did an incredible job of getting us some games on our deal with some power fours. I'm like, we played UCF in the Las Vegas UNLV's tournament. East Carolina is a really good conference. Florida Gulf Coast, when we picked up that game on our way to Puerto Rico, that was such a great game to schedule because that is another mid-major comparatively that's always in that discussion of advancing. And it's a road win, a road game. But we do know we've got to get a win or two in that kind of caliber of 25 to 50 net rating. I think we were, you're looking at the 50 to 100 where I felt like we were very competitive in that category, but we didn't have a great game against Utah, and that was kind of where it was a turning point for us in a positive way. But we didn't have a great game there, and I think that could have made a very big impact for us on the seeding if we were a little bit closer or maybe had a chance to win that one on the road. We also did not have Taylor or Lexi suited up by that point, so we were really thin in the post. We were still kind of learning who we were. So those are kind of the discussions, Colter. I think the 25 to 50, and I'm like, the 1 to 25 is not what's needed. I think they're looking at, some of those seeds that got a 12 a 12 versus our 13, where our net was better. Our net was really, really competitive and good. Our RPI was good. I think we were 54 and 44. But I think if we get one of those Utah wins or something else in that region of the 25, I think that's the next step. And I do feel like they look at all that. So, but I would like us to be really intentional of just trying to get in front of the NCAA to be watching us throughout the course of the year.
Is a will you marry me in your future? Or maybe you do it all over again. Hi, I'm Brian Toon with Jewelry Design Center, inviting you to come see the largest selection of Will You Marry Me in the state of Montana. The brightest diamonds of every shape and size, unique settings built to last, and skilled jewelers on site offering free sizing and maintenance for life, because that's how long we want to be your jeweler. Jewelry Design Center in Missoula, on Brooks, across from the
You were
Montana.
recently arrested, and now you're wondering, do I need to hire a criminal defense attorney? And the answer is yes, you do. This is not the time to gamble with your future and with your freedom. Here at Ryan & Miller, we have over 40 years of experience with criminal defense, and we take it very seriously that we protect our clients' rights. So if you have any questions and want to know how our team can help you, make sure to give us a call today.
It's always been a challenge for Big Sky teams, certainly, to sort of land on that national radar. There's so much exposure within the Big Sky and within our state, but then it's hard to get it sort of outside of the state's borders. Tricia Binford, Montana State women's basketball coach, joining us here on Nuanez Now, ESPN Radio, as well as the Big Sky Breakdown podcast series. South Dakota State was a 10 seed this year. They played this dynamite non-conference schedule and then had a very similar conference run like you guys. I think they went 16-0. You guys went 17-1. Is that a type of program that you look at and say, okay, maybe that's something we can replicate? An FCS playing football school that's also sort of in a relatively similar region. I mean, is that sort of a program you can look at to use as sort of a way that you can get up to those more competitive seeds?
Well, I think it has to be, because we're to the place where teams don't want to schedule us for preseason because of our recent, I shouldn't say recent success. We've always had a hard time getting games here in Montana in general. But because we have been a winning program, it's hard to get home games here. And South Dakota State is in that same boat. Talking with AJ, they do schedule very well and competitively. And the more you schedule those games and start having some success, I think it set them up to, when they hit the NCAA tournament, they're past the butterflies in that moment. I think everybody's going to have some butterflies, but it's not such a different stage that they haven't been playing that throughout the year. And I do think that is where we're at. It's going to be a must regardless, because it's hard to get teams to play us. So the teams that are going to be willing are probably going to be some of those programs. So it's a great example, Colter. I think that's where we would love to get. We would love to get to that place where we're getting that respectable seed. And based on some past experience, I'm like, South Dakota State's been successful in the first rounds, and they've always put up a great fight. They've always been competitive, and they play to a particular style. And we've gotten to a place where we've got a particular style now that is going to draw a certain kind of recruit. It's not going to draw everybody, but our style, that's going to be how we're going to be competitive.
You feel like a breakthrough for the conference for your team or someone else from the Big Sky too could sort of help raise the bar of the league?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm like, it goes back to what has the Big Sky done in the past? I'm like, you're looking at the entire entire year, and we're trying to have our kids not focus, right? We were focused on, hey, 1-0 next game. But when you're looking at the bracketology throughout the entire year, whether it was us or NEU, consistently, they're just putting in the bracketology what they're considering for the Big Sky. And I still think the Big Sky, we need to be intentional because I think we're underrated as a conference consistently by what you're seeing on these bracketologies for how competitive our conference has been. And but that is where we're headed. Somebody in the Big Sky is going to have to do a great job in that first round to be considered to get a little bit better. But our preseason success does matter. And I think the portal, transfer portal with, kids coming in and out, I do think that shakes up some of maybe what bracketology is considering for some conferences too, based on, hey, some teams got some impact kids and look how competitive they've been. I do think the net matters. But I think the wins in the preseason against some higher ranked teams even matter more. But then the conference, we do need to be competitive.
You've seen this tremendous growth and interest in women's basketball on the national level. It's always been so prominent in Montana. I think that's been something that's been so cool is this state's interest in it, sort of leading the charge there. But how do you sort of continue to capitalize on that? Because you see a bunch of great players coming out of Montana high school ranks right now, but also there's so much more at your disposal in terms of potential recruits regionally and nationally as well. So how does Montana State women's basketball sort of take the momentum on the national level and use it to your advantage?
Well, you protect your backyard, you represent your state, it becomes that, what are you playing for? Is it the name on that front of that jersey? And I think Montana kids have a certain pride about their state. I'm like, these are, some of your toughest and grittiest kids. And I'll tell you what, our freshman class in general, our entire team, but, you throw in a Taylor Cherrick into the conversation, that kid's fearless. She's relentless. And, that's the other piece of you go into those, you need fearless kids of, believing in what we're capable of doing. And those Montana kids, they get it. So yeah, I think protecting your backyard matters.
I got to ask you just about the state of affairs in college basketball right now. No rest for the weary, right? I mean, you guys have right into the portal cycle, and you've had a couple leave, but I'm sure you're probably got a couple that you're trying to get as well. So how do you sort of manage this whole scenario, and the timing of it just seems like it's so intense for you guys as coaches?
Yeah, I think the shortening of the celebration, so to speak, right? You get off a plane and you're trying to kind of decompress and have a moment just to acknowledge what a special year it was. And, and then the following week, you want to have your meetings just so kids know if there are opportunities, and we need to be prepared for what we might need to be replacing. Like there's that transition. I can't imagine, some of these, and obviously the teams that were advancing in the Sweet 16 and going into the Final Four with all this kind of starting, I'm like, that time frame of the transfer portal, I think still has some discussion to be had of when that does open for teams still playing. But it's becoming that cycle of, okay, here's the new rhythm of how we all need to manage it. But I still want our returners to have their downtime. I think that's a priority. There's very long seasons. We need to make sure they have a chance to recharge and then get in the gym and do some skill development. But as a staff, it's working on skill development, making sure that they continue to get their needs as far as development and getting better, and then finding what pieces fit. I think that's where for us, we want to be still really specific with it. Otherwise, it's going to be overwhelming, and everybody needs a need. And we just want to make sure we're kind of locking into what that looks like.
We talked so much about all the great players on your team this year, and I know that Sonny Smallwood got some press at the Big Sky tournament too, because Seton Sobolewski had some nice things to say, and that sort of turned into a story that a couple of us wrote. But I wanted to ask about Ryan Johnson, because you mentioned, I actually wanted to ask about Ryan and Devin, because I think they both had such a huge impact for you this year. But Ryan's somebody that stood out to me even back to his days at Idaho State, and I know he's been a huge addition for your team. So just talk about what he's brought to your staff and from a scheduling and also just coaching perspective.
Being in this industry since I was in college, one of the things I think we take the most pride in is Aspen Sound's been such a presence in Missoula for almost 40 years. The cool parts about our job is people always ask me, what do you do for a living? I sell phone, whether it's as simple as window tint all the way up to integrating a backup camera into a factory screen. I'm pretty excited about the options we can
Cash One Pawn has the most extensive inventory of any pawn shop in western Montana. Whether you're in the market for firearms, power tools, bows, video game consoles, or sunglasses, Cash One Pawn has the best deals around. And now Cash One Pawn gives you the ability to shop online from anywhere. Make CashOnePawn.com part of your shopping habits. Also make sure to download the Cash One Pawn app. Cash One Pawn, Missoula's premier pawn shop, located on Roller Coaster Road on the way to the Y.
Well, when you're at a mid-major and you're wearing a lot of hats, number one, I'll start there. You bring in a coach into your program, and there's probably 8 to 10 other things that you have responsibilities for. And for Ryan, he came in and he has so much international recruiting in his background that he was able to take that whole process under his wings with the international office. I'm like, I don't even have to ask a question about it. Taxes are coming up, all that sort of thing. There's just behind the scenes things that Ryan brings to the table with his experience that are really remarkable. Our kids joke that he's the smartest person that they know. Like he's got tremendous background in all facets of the game. And for us specifically, to have somebody that I can just send our post players to, when we split up and we do our vitamin work, and he's having them run well oiled, and I get to give him a couple things like if I want emphasized, and he's off and running. He's just done it for a long time. Every place that he's been, I'm like, you could go back to UNC, Idaho State, obviously us, Xavier, those players and their development over that course. That is specifically what we were looking for, because that's something we sell here is we're going to develop kids, and he's just done a tremendous job. But then the third thing I've had Ryan do is we put him on as offensive coordinator to take some thought off my plate, calling both, with the offense and the defense. And so he specifically broke down our out of bounds sideline this year, and that was tremendous. And the feedback I get on that side is just, it's invaluable when you have somebody with the things that he's seeing are, teams are adjusting to, and we need to run. So I basically have 2 head coaches on either side of me, with Ryan on my left for the offense and Sonny on my right with the defense. And then Devin's as good as they come as well. But I don't want to brag about him too much because I want to keep my staff here, Colter, and watching. So, Devin was somebody that one of my former players, Scott Morton, Dr. Scott Morton, who was working with the Mizzou teams as the director of sports performance. That's kind of when he got on our radar. And he's just so invested. He's invested in the kids, and the staff, nobody's going to outwork him. I can tell you that. And I think Devin's on a phone. He's got connections everywhere. But the biggest thing that I love about the staff is their investment in our players. Like if you asked every single kid, whether they've graduated, they're still on the team, or they've made some other decisions for themselves that they find is best. I'm like, every single one of them will tell you our culture is great, and they love the staff. They just do a great job to support our kids.
Last thing for you then, what's next? What's the offseason look like? How do you sort of carry this momentum forward into the offseason and then into next year?
Well, the first thing is we're going to have just a really fun week because it snowed yesterday. I don't know if it snowed there for you. And I'm heading to Florida tomorrow for the Final Four. So I'm ready for some great weather. Sonny left yesterday with both Esme and KJ for the So You Want to Be a Coach program at the Final Four. So we're excited for both of them. And the big thing for, first of all, KJ is going to get into coaching at some point. So we want to kind of set her up that way. And then Esme, She just she worked last week finding herself a great agent, and she got invited to the Final Four Combine where the WNBA scouts are going to be. So going to go watch her Friday there, go to some business meetings, watch some great games. But in the meantime, getting our kids set up for some spring workouts, and most importantly, making sure that we do our homework and we really go through the right pieces in the portal that could be some great additions, because we're excited about who we got coming back. We love our freshman class, and really we get a couple great pieces here. We feel like we can move this needle again. So that's what we're excited about.
Tricia Binford here on Nuanez Now and the Big Sky Breakdown podcast series. Coach, we appreciate all the time. Congratulations again on a great season, and we'll catch up soon, but have fun at the Final Four.
Will do. Thanks, Colter.
Meeting her stopped your world. The ring you give her should stop her heart.
Tina, will you marry me?
Not again! Don't worry, I'm gonna fix this, because we want to be your jeweler on our beautiful diamond! Clear! Come back to me, Tina! Are you okay?
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any town pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Town Pump. Right down the